Well, good. I'll take that. Woo. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. What does it do? What does it do? I am Wendy Torres, your co-host for the Mentor Mentee podcast on this February 23rd of 2021. And we can already see how this night is about to go. Hey, Emil, how are you?
Hey y'all, happy Tuesday. Hot ass mess off the gate, but it's it just don't make no sense. And I'm about to switch over my Wi-Fi again because as soon as we go live, it starts to play games. But it's all good.
Listen,
But I don't know.
listen.
Go ahead.
No, you go right ahead.
I just want to say it's crazy that we talk for 45 minutes beforehand and everything is good. The moment we start to do something, everything falls apart. But it's all good. We love y'all.
I'm telling you, like, this is indicative of, you know what? No, this opening is indicative of this conversation. It's messy, it's hard, it's convoluted. We're trying to work through it, we're trying to figure it out because there's a lot of stuff we got to figure out, America. Like, America, we got some There's some splaining to do, America. We got some stuff to deal with.
What's your lip color? Right, what's your lip color?
This is Ruby Woo from Mac.
Okay. Good evening. Good evening. This is not a test. We are just a hot mess.
No, this is not a test. We have been in sound check for 40 minutes. And now let me tell the whole story. So
okay,
listen,
go ahead.
I was trying to post the podcast to my personal page, and I told my producer, email, that I didn't see it. So you open up and let me get this done. And when the music stopped, what did the brother do?
Nothing. You know why?
Exactly.
I did nothing. I completely let you down. Everything I was supposed to do, I didn't do. I was just happy picture was up. I didn't think I was going to get the picture up in time. But then I don't know. It's crazy. Y'all,
listen, one day this be a hard. Go ahead.
One day this pandemic will be over and we'll be in full productions again and in person, and we won't have to deal with the shenanigans that is this podcast setup. But until then, we're going to enjoy our time with y'all. So let's get into a check-in. Wendy, how you doing?
I am listen. I'm doing okay. So I'm doing great. It's another Tuesday. Let me tell you about workouts this morning. We start my checkout there. So I went to the gym this morning at 5:30 for workouts, and we did this thing called it's an RDL, power clean squat. But guess what we squatted on, America? It wasn't just the squat. Yes, to the brick. To the break. Let me tell you how sadistic my trainer is. So we were on Saturday. We do this thing called brick squats. So when the instructor wants you to squat on a brick. Now, if you want to get on a small brick, that is a normal center block. For those of you that don't understand what that is, we're talking about center blocks, ladies and gentlemen. So if you're on a small center block, then you were the dummy that got a small center block, and then now you've got to squat to that thing. That's on you. Yes, you do. It's 8 inches, and good luck for you. But those of us that will brave a tall brick, that means you got to step up on it. It's 16 inches, and we've got to squat to that. So Saturday didn't go so well for some of us on Green Team. And so our trainer, being as sadistic as he is, what does he do? He incorporates it in our workout. Yes, he did. He did. So here I am with the bar. The bar weighs 45 pounds, and I've got two 15s on each side. I did. And so I've got a RDL, power clean, snatch, elbow shoot, and then I've got a squat to the brick. I had 4 sets of 10 of that. That was awesome because I couldn't get to the brick on Saturday. So that's how my morning started. So, but the other thing about my check-in that I would like to
What
talk
else?
about is that I over the weekend I watched the documentary on PBS about the Black church.
Oh
And so
yes.
oh my goodness. So the first night, ladies and gentlemen, oh, it was glorious. It was the history of the Black church, the first Black church, and all the denominations of the Black church, and all of the famous different clergy in the Black church. And it was glorious and it was awesome. And all of the church people were just so happy. Yes, for the PBS documentary. And then the second night came.
Okay.
And they started talking about things that happen in the Black church.
Oh.
Like all the women that are not acknowledged in ministry in so many denominations.
Okay.
How the Black church uses the LGBTQ community, but doesn't want to acknowledge them. And church hurt. And they did a whole segment on Jeremiah Wright and President Obama and that whole situation, which I thought was like cheesy. You could have saved that for an Obama documentary. But you could have heard the crickets cracking out there in churchdom when they brought up women in the gay community. Listen. Y'all knew them people was gay when they was directing your choirs.
True. It's true.
As long as they didn't talk about it, you were okay with it. And then when they wanted to be acknowledged, then it's not okay. I have mixed feelings. I thought the documentary was amazing. I think that church hurt is definitely the Black church is definitely a conversation we need to get into. I found out over the weekend that I have 3 women in my circle that I did not know that are licensed and ordained ministers that have left the church because of church hurt. So if you all don't know my story, I actually left the church for a while too and was going to leave ministry full time and came back. So I thought that was interesting to know 3 other African-American women that left the church as well. And I want to get to their story. There's a podcast in that. So that was my weekend. That's my time. What's going on with you?
Ooh, nothing much. It was a good week, all is all. I look forward to my Tuesdays. It's been normal, nothing crazy. Yeah, I'm basic. You know what's crazy? I will say I'm basic, y'all. It's such a basic time in my life. It's crazy. I don't have all the. Wendy is living for both of us at this moment. I will say though, I will say that in the last couple of days, I've started looking at some of my older scripts and deciding which one needs to get picked back up again and get another draft written. So we'll see what comes of that. I go in and out of writing phases. So if one is coming, who knows what's about to happen.
Okay.
Who knows? I did come into the theater today and look at the theater and become very sad for a hot second. Because sometimes it's just depressing to look at that stage, knowing how much life used to exist on it on a daily basis and how much is not there anymore. So all is well, y'all. I'm going to segue into this craziest conversation I think we've had on the Mentor Mentee podcast.
Okay.
Who knows how this is going to go? I just, let me share this. So Wendy and I, when we talk about topics, it usually goes like this. Wendy will text me, say, what are we talking about? And I will say, this is what I've been thinking about. And she say, okay, and this is what I've been thinking about. So this time I was thinking about interracial friendships. Over the last 2 weeks, we were doing a lot of talking about Black history and really talking about the inequality that has happened for African Americans. And I started to watch Living Single again. It's one of my favorite shows. I watch it a lot. But I started watching it again, and I really started to think about the inequity that happened between Living Single and Friends, the TV show.
Okay.
And how when Friends decided to boycott their own show and ask for higher higher wages. It was very quickly done and very easily done, and many of them went on to make millions of dollars. Whereas when it happened with Living Single, the show actually ended. Like, we started to lose it. We lost the character in our final season, and then it just like the season ended. We didn't get a great ending. It was sad as all get up. We had a great storyline, and it was just all gone. And so, and I will just say this: Living Single is a better scripted show to friends any day. But in that, because the shows are based off of friendships, I really wanted to talk about this interracial friendship world that we are living in, specifically because we continue to go through times of injustice, right? Which is basically all of American history. I get that, but specifically if we look at the last 4 or 5 years, especially in the last 2 years or 3 years when the Me Too movement came back up, there were a lot of conversations pertaining to Black bodies telling their interracial friendships, white, wherever they may be, that they weren't interested in having the conversation anymore. You were to go read your own books. You were to go and figure it out on your own. I particularly wasn't one who told somebody to go read a book. That's simply because the white people I keep around me, I not necessarily vet, but I rant a lot about race. So it's very easy for me to figure out, one, where you stand, because I could just make you feel very uncomfortable, or two, if you're even interested in having conversations about race with me, and how open you are to it. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk about interracial friendships.
Okay.
What are they? Where they come from? How we have come to have ours? Where are some of the challenges that we're finding ourselves in when we're talking about interracial friendships?
I lost your sound. I don't know if it's just me. Stop hitting stuff. Yes, and Living Signal was one of the best comedy writing. Like, it was excellent. Hmm.
I don't know. I lost
There
you.
you
Can you hear
are.
me?
Yes, I got you.
Yeah, I told y'all today was a hot mess. It was just
It's okay.
That's the way it was going to be. So, Wendy, my first question to you is, Southern woman all your life, what was it like growing up and having interracial friendships?
So I've had interracial. So I'm going to give a disclaimer because we have not talked about this. But this is only episode number 3 for the season. Am I right? So I'm going to give it a little bit of a disclaimer. Nate and I both have experienced a major loss in our life. And actually, my best friend passed away. I guess it's been about a month ago. And that was a major interracial friendship in my life. So we'll see how this episode is about to go. But anyway, I have had interracial friendships all my life. My parents have raised me in mixed communities since I was little. I grew up in high school. Actually, elementary school was mixed. I had I went to Farrington High School in DeKalb County when it was half and half. I went to Lithonia High School. Y'all. I went to high school when they had a smoking section for adults. I mean, for students, And teachers smoked in the teachers' lounge. Matter of fact, teachers smoked in the teachers' lounge in elementary school. I remember it. So that's how old I am. But I went to Shiloh High School in Gwinnett County, and I've told this story before. There were 48 Blacks in my school, 7 African Americans in my graduating class. I was the only African American teenager in my neighborhood as I was growing up. I have 3 white women who I have identified over life as very close friends, elementary, middle, 2 middle and high school. Well, I didn't go to middle school, so high school, college, and then my adult life. I am very, very comfortable and capable of having interracial friendships. Yeah. My very best friend for the last since 2006. We met in 2006, and in 2008 solidified the fact that we were best friends. Like it was a conversation. Like it was, do you go with me? Check yes or no.
Yes.
How close of friends are we? There was a conversation that was had in 2008 until her passing a couple of weeks ago. She was my best friend.
So, okay, I hear that. I think to jump off on the same question, to say yes. In New York, there were a lot. It was a multiracial world, and so everyone was becoming friends with everyone. I think I predominantly started to have white friends once I moved down to the South, because as multi-ethnic as it was in New York, majority of it was brown bodies of different heritage or ethnicities. So down South was really where I was introduced to conversations and meeting white people and talking to white people, which does a thing specifically when you're meeting Southern white people, because you do have to deal with the parents and what the parents believe. And at a young age, you're seeing all of these things for the very first time in the South. I too have a best friend who is white. And
are we sure about that?
I mean, his skin is white, but
he's light skin.
But if you took him to another country and he was able to get the sun that he desperately always wanted, he would be a happy guy. Not that he would turn black, but he would be a very happy guy just to have a good tan. And he doesn't get as he wants. But the point of the matter is that when me and him became friends in the beginning, we actually were rivals for the first couple of years, because he was an artist, I was an artist. It had nothing to do with theater, but we were rivals we were a part of our middle school news anchor team. And we were like rivals to become the producer. If he tells you the story, he says he'll never want it. But when I tell you the story, I tell you he did want it, and he was going to get it, and I was going after him. And so we were rivals. And then we went to high school together. We figured we might as well join forces together because it's bad when you're not. However, I will say specifically with him and some of the others, there have been a lot of times in the last decade where we've had to have a lot of hard conversations, right? I think it isn't even a matter of sometimes if you love the person or not love the person or trust the person or not trust the person, but that something happened and you just need to hear where they stand in the circumstance. You just want to on the issue. You just want to hear their initial reactions before they go out and talk to people, before they go out and read an article. Sometimes you just want to hear what they naturally have to say. And I think that sometimes can be the very challenging and exhausting part about the friendship, is because you have to listen. You have to listen and allow them to make the mistakes in the language.
Right.
And trying to figure out what they want to say and how they want to say it and what they actually understand or don't understand or comprehend. I also find that asking the questions seems to be hard sometimes because the idea of language. So we talk often about what language we often talk about how complicated language is. There's many ways to communicate. There's many right ways and there's many wrong ways. And especially in this demographic and this time that we're in, we are always like crossing the line if we're being politically correct or if we're saying this appropriately to not offend someone. So I'm going to throw a question on you, which is to say, how do you like to have racial conversations with your interracial friends?
And that's it. That's for me and the audience, or
for
the audience.
You and the audience. Everyone, okay. I'm talking to you all. Y'all know when I start asking questions, participate in it. I'll bring your chat up if you say something. But I want to know, how do you like to get into these racial conversations with your interracial friendships?
So as we get ready to go into that, Angie said that her best friend is from Afghanistan.
That's fire.
So, yeah. And she is, and Gila is fire. She's amazing. That's her best friend. So how do I have racial conversations with my non-Black friends?
Yes.
So the way that Shauna and I broached that topic. So when I was in high school and in college, I had two girlfriends, one named Alethea and another one named Cammie. We didn't really ever talk about race. We just lived. I mean, when you're a teenager, we had so many things in common. The only thing that was not in common was the pigment in our skin. Mm-hmm. Everything else we had in common. Every single other aspect, economic status, school status, where we went to school, where we went to, I was always dragging them to church. Bless the hearts of people at church. That Wendy always bringing these white girls to church. That was life. That was my friends. And that's when, my daddy would say, if you went out on Saturday night, you getting up Sunday morning. Sorry, y'all, we got to get up and got to go. But when I got a little bit older, when Shauna and I were trying to develop a friendship, what we had in common is that we were both raised Southern women. And so you were talking about a Southern Baptist white woman and a National Baptist Black woman, very entrenched into doctrine, but those doctrines are very different. And so as we would have conversations and we would grow in our friendship, we would constantly say, how close of friends are we? And then we say, well, I like you. What? And then, we would talk about this or that, or then something would come up on the job and I would say, okay, I need to talk to you about something. And we had every single hard conversation that you could have with a person of, if you're white, color, and if you're not white, non-color, we had it. And we had them out, even down to the fact of, why was I going to vote for Barack Obama and why was she not? Mm-hmm. And understanding the reasoning behind it. Like, we actually co-taught classes where we talked about where we felt 100% comfortable sharing our political views because we were sharing the complete opposites. Mm-hmm. I am a Republican. I am a Democrat. And this is why, because I believe this, because I believe that. For you, you've got to make that decision for yourself. We got to a point where we just understood each other and we respected the differences that we had and the similarities, because the similarities outweighed the differences. We had the same mother and the same father. Our parents are 97% the same people. Mm-hmm. So we had those hard conversations. And if I met someone, and if I meet someone and we can't have those conversations, you are not my friend.
Right. And how I guess the next question to it is, did they become enjoyable at some point?
Yes, because so you have to reel me in. So there's one anecdotal, there's two scenarios. I will never forget when I was sitting around talking to some other Black women at our job. We talked together for several years, and we were all talking about hair, natural hair. You have C4 hair. If you're African American, then you know that you can identify your hair through certain. Do you have C4 hair, 4B, blah, blah, blah. That's talking about the curliness of your hair, how the lack thereof, or how tight your curls are. This woman sits down and says, well, I have 2B hair. And every night I wrap my hair up in Bantu knots to dry it. What she meant was that she parted her hair in about 6 parts and put a clamp in it as she got out of the shower to dry her hair. Yes, Jennifer, Lord have mercy. She was 120% being genuine. Her hair, when it dropped, when it was wet, it would have a little bit of a wave in it. And she had looked it up, and that was a 2B, and that was her natural hair. And because her best friend was Black, she was going to identify. You should have seen the looks of the women at that table. They didn't say a word to me, but every last eye at that table said, Wendy, if you don't get this girl away from this table. It was hilarious and it was genuine at the same time.
Yeah, that's very Shauna.
She meant that. And then another story was, am I good on time?
You're not going good, but let me tell you what I was going to say.
Okay, go ahead.
The one thing I am going to take from that is them always doing the research, right?
She did.
Which is what Shauna would just do the research so that even if she was out of line and it didn't make sense, she was correct. She was like, I got 2B here. I looked it up. I did. That's what you're asking me to do, right? Like to be around, I guess I have to figure out, so she did it. She didn't belong in the space, right?
No.
We get that. You don't belong in.
She didn't understand that at all.
Yeah, there are spaces you just don't belong in, right?
Just be quiet and observe.
Yeah, so if you're on here right now, this is a great time for you to observe the conversation, right? If you are of any hue, then join into the conversation. Let's know, how you think about it.
If my girlfriend Kawana was on here or my girlfriend Ashley, they are both in sororities. Mm-hmm. If they were having a conversation with their other sorority sisters or my baby sister, she's in a sorority. If they're having a conversation about sororities, there's nothing for me to chime in.
No, you just sit there.
I'm not Greek. I will wait for you here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shauna didn't get that at all. She was going to be a part of the conversation.
Yes, because they don't like to be left out.
No.
They don't ever want to be left out.
I'm going to squeeze this in. But then another time when Ian and Zion, my son and my daughter, were about 6 and 7, I was at a store buying something. And the clerk at the store said to me, you have such, and then she bent down to get something. And she said, cotton picking. She said, you have such beautiful. And she bent down and she said, cotton picking children. I picked up my phone and I said, called Shauna on the weekend. I said, Buff. She said, huh? I said, what did you tell me that cotton picking meant? And her immediate conversation was, where are you? I told her, I told her the name of the store. She said, have you bought anything? I said, no. She said, don't buy a thing there, put it down and leave. I said, and then I started getting angry. She said, Wendy, I'm too far away to bail you out. I can't bail you out today. Just go get in your car. I hung up the phone. I said, you know what? I'll just pick this up later. I'll see you later. I got in my car and she told me that the word, when the person says cotton picking, it was code for the N-word. Mm-hmm. So that was the duality of our relationship.
Right.
She didn't know when to be quiet about natural hair, but she knew when I did not need to give somebody my money because they were disrespecting me and my family.
And so she was there to protect. She was there to protect as much as she was there to
give
you a good laugh too. To honestly give you a good freaking laugh.
There's Kawana right there, my girlfriend. That's in the story.
What you say? They don't know what it means to be included because in their mind it's always about them. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, you ever had a conversation with them and they you ever had a racial conversation with a white person and they make it about white people? They just stop talking about black people. It just actually just turns into a conversation about white supremacy and the lack thereof. So let me tell you something else that brought me into this. So CNN and the last couple of weeks has been doing a documentary on Lincoln.
Yeah.
Which at first I was like, who needs to watch anything else on Lincoln? But I was like, I'm interested. Let me hear what you got to say. And so it's interesting right now that a lot of people who are doing historical documents, like the Netflix 14th Amendment that just came out, everyone is talking about it. Everyone is talking about inequality between the black race and white supremacy. And they're not talking about race anymore. They're actually targeting the idea of inequality.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started to think often about my friendships, right? Specifically, if I think about coming out of the university that I was out of, right? So I was one of 6. I was the only black guy, and then everyone else was white, and one person was Native American, or indigenous. And so often when racial things would happen, I was the one who had to have the conversation or bring up the fact that this is a conversation to be had.
Right.
And so the first thing that's annoying about it is the moment you make the black person the single or other or the voice keeper in the space, you actually demise all of our space, right? You take it up, you fill it up, you destroy us from the ability of us just to be free in who we are. And then we feel like now we have to focus on the singular task at hand.
Right.
And so much, and it's crazy for us in academia because we keep finding ourselves in these spaces where we have to have the conversation over and over and over, which I'm sure this is what Kiji saying. Kiji said, white people always find a way to center themselves in the conversation of race. But that's the white supremacy, right? That's the idea that okay, Kiji.
Jennifer, are you talking about the word cotton picking? Just let me know if that's what you're talking about.
But they won't unpack their whiteness and white supremacy. Shaking my head. How are we having a convo on race and make it about white people, but don't get to the heart if it's yeah.
So there's two. I want you to finish your thought, but I have some thoughts on that.
Go ahead.
Okay, so there's two things there, right? So number one, I remember when I first started teaching, the first teaching job I had, the second teaching job I had, I was the only African-American adult in the entire school. Cafeteria staff, custodial staff, bus drivers, teachers. That meant everything, and the school was about 25% Black. That everything Black was my responsibility. It was exhausting. That's when I started putting on Black history programs, which I mentioned in the other episode. But it was exhausting. I am not the keeper of all things Black. Yes, right. I am African American, and yes, but you need to. If every problem that comes, why are you bringing? I teach 6th grade. Why are you bringing 8th grade students to me? Like, it was ridiculous. And that was one of the reasons why I chose to go to APS in the first place. But I want to go back. Oh God, I can't even think about what it was about them, everything being centered around them. You know, it's like, as we're talking about these different issues, like, I need you to see me. As we're talking about these issues that are related to me, but you keep making it about you. Here's my point that I wanted to bring up. You know, they want us, like, you have people right now that do not want to talk about white supremacy. That white males will say, like, it is right now, it is a bad thing to be white. No one is saying that. But at the same time, I need you to feel what it has been for centuries for society to tell you that to be Black is bad. Mm-hmm. For every commercial to say to be a Black woman is unattractive, for my hair is ugly, for that I am dumb, for every societal norm that has made negative things about African Americans, you have only felt that for 6 months. It hasn't even been a year. Let's say it's been 2, and you couldn't take it to the point where you rioted and ran up on the Capitol. Like, you couldn't take what we have had on our shoulders for over 100 years. You couldn't even put up with it for 365 days without going crazy. If you have not seen this Instagram post of this woman who is an elderly white woman who is walking through the mall, and she clearly is a very upscale, conservative white woman, and she makes a comment to a group of people, like off-putting comment, and they hear her. And instead of letting her just say what she said, they come back at her. And not only do they come back at her, they follow her and say, no, you're going to be accountable for your actions. She broke down and had a complete fit in a store in the mall. Like she just fell out. She couldn't take the weight. Can you imagine? We can't even drive down the street without they see me. Can you imagine me? Look at me with my makeup on, with my Ruby Woo red lipstick on, and everything. When I leave the gym, this is not what I look like. I'm exhausted. I'm all wrapped up. I've got on a Scully hat because my head is soaking wet, and then a hoodie on top of that in a big truck. I could be stopped at any time. That is our life every day. And when you felt that for 1 year, you couldn't take it to the point that you rioted. And every time people have rioted when they couldn't take something, a verdict, or then we were called savages. Our point is, my point is the weight of that. Every time we're trying to tell you something and you make it about you, I need you to think about what you can't even take it.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
So to jump on that, hold on. Okay, let's do the comments first. Kiji said, "Grown bullies turn quickly into big babies." Preach it, sister. Jennifer said, "And they treat us different unless we look a certain way," which is always very, very true. There's that's one of the reasons why Trump tries so hard to hide the 2020 census, to stop the 2020 census. They don't want to be known as the minority in the United States, even though they are technically already the minority. But the mindset of them is still functioning as if they are the majority, which is the white supremacy that we actually have to talk about. So,
go ahead. No, keep going.
So I want to pose that when we're having these racial conversations, that they're actually not racial conversations about the Black experience, but they're racial conversations about white supremacy and how that is functioning within the body of that friend of ours, and how we can help them to decode that thing. Because even our best white friend has pieces of it embedded in them. That is the work that they have to do, just as we are doing the work to get to equality when it comes to the American way. What was your hand up for?
Keep going. I forgot.
Okay. Okay, but Kiji agrees with me. So talk to me about this. How do you feel about this idea of when we're now having these racial conversations, right? Because perfect example is this. If we're talking about, yes, they all turned into big babies and ran up to the Capitol and jumped in and acted like they knew what they were supposed to do, right? How many of us talk to our white counterparts about what happened?
So I definitely have had conversations. So that was one of the reasons why in my post for this particular episode, I asked the question, are you my friend? Are you my ally? Or are you my co-conspirator? So I'm going to say her first name incorrectly, please. Bettina. I think it is Bettina Love, Dr. Love, who is the leader of the abolitionist education movement. And forgive me if I said her first name incorrectly. She talks about the difference between being an ally and a co-conspirator. So an ally is that person that says, I'm here with you. I'm there, yes, I'm for Black Lives Matters. I see what's happening. Shauna and I had a conversation. She called me one day and said, I'm so sorry that my two children are able to grow up in America completely different than your two younger children. I don't know what to say about that. So that's one thing. But then that's an ally. But a co-conspirator is Tommy.
Yes.
The person that's going to get in the trenches with you.
Right.
The person that's going to get out in front of you.
I was going to say, you got to make sure it's the one that jumps in front of you.
In front of you. And uses their white privilege to your benefit. And that's what I think America was not ready for in all of the racial protests that have happened in 2021. They were not prepared to see their white children put their white bodies on the line. Because remember, when you all were in high school, that's what started this. We kept saying our children are putting their bodies on the line for us. We have got to stand up and do something for them. White children, by the thousands, hundreds of thousands, putting themselves in harm's way for an issue that does not 100% directly affect them, but they understand that it does affect them. Mm-hmm. That is a co-conspirator.
Yeah. KG says she ain't have no. Oh, wait, hold on. Let me get the captain. The captain said America was not made for blacks. Yes. Yeah, but it was made by blacks. So because it was made by blacks, black people know how to black people are able to evolve with the space of it because it is based off of our invention.
I would flip my hair, but it's behind the headphones.
Come with it. Kitty said, I had no mental space to talk to white people after the 6. I hear that. I hear that. Kwana says the same thing. I get it. But you know what? Here's the thing. It's not even just, I'm just actually talking about your one. Everyone. Like to y'all, I'm talking to that one you got, that one that you talk to as often as you would talk to any of them, of your friends. Because there's gotta be there's just gotta be something to be said. There's gotta be something to share, even if it's in the jokes, right? Because on the 6th, I'm not gonna lie, there was a lot of laughing happening in my household. I wasn't living, I know some people were, but I wasn't living in a state of fear. White people were showing their asses, and it was hilarious to laugh at them at the very thing that they talk so much about what we never do. Because what they did is something they can't find in history of us actually doing.
No, and we've marched on Washington several times. Million Man March, and especially if you want to call, you tried to call the Honorable Louis Farrakhan a savage, a terrorist, and all of those things. The Million Man March, they didn't tear up nothing. You called Martin Luther King a socialist and a communist. They didn't tear up anything. So women's march.
Didn't tear up anything.
They didn't tear up anything. Okay, but I will say, I have to be the voice of reason.
Okay.
You have to know that by the thousands, oh Lord, we brought out Mr. Brown. I cannot believe that. By the thousands, you have had white Americans leave the Republican Party because of what have happened on January the 6th. So that's why we're having this conversation, because you have to acknowledge the fact that when you're talking about white supremacy, when you're talking about having interracial friendships, dealing with issues of race, that you cannot put every person in one box, because
True.
They're not. True. They're not in one box, right? The organizations Awake that I'm a part of, that organization is mixed down the middle, split down the middle. A lot of the protests that have happened were run by white students. Let's be real. It was your friend that got L even started at Stone Mountain. Let's be real. There are people out there putting their they know who they are. See, here's the point. It's one thing for you to know who you are. When I was a teacher and Nate was my student, I had an authority that Nate did not. And when he needed me, he knew where to come, to be sheltered, to be helped, to be protected, or to be corrected. Now, we will throw that last one away, but that goes for the teacher part. I had an authority or position and a privilege that he did not. Torres, can you go get me a donut out of the blah, blah, blah? I'm hungry and I don't have any food. I could do that for him. You have counterparts that recognize that they have a privilege and they use it to the benefit of the betterment of another group, not a lesser group, because we are not lesser. But we are an oppressed group, and they recognize that. Do not lump the whole. You don't. The one apple can't spoil the whole bunch, but you don't lump everyone together because they're not all the same. Let me
Mr.
see what did Mr. Brown say.
I know. I wanted to say, Mr. Brown, can you put in the chat what Stevie Wonder said? The last thing I know about Stevie Wonder is that he's leaving America and going to Ghana. That's what I read a couple of days ago. But Mr. Brown, put it in the chat and then we'll read it out and talk about it. Let's go back. The captain said, I didn't talk to anyone who was white. I talked to my son to let him see what white privilege is on display. Well, that's a worthy conversation. That's a very worthy conversation. I watched it with my father and we laughed about it so much. But that was the first time you really got to see it on television.
But you have to acknowledge that white people were mortified.
Yeah, they should have been mortified. That's the white supremacy part about it, is that you should be mortified about what your people are doing. Not to say that they aren't any less of my people as an American, but look at what you guys are doing because y'all willing to listen to a lie for so long.
The guy said we were law-abiding Americans and you did this to us.
That's what he said.
Right. The police opening the door and taking selfies with the people. Not wanting to call in the National Guard because you didn't like the optics of it.
Okay, but
can we go on and on and on?
And that goes so far past the protesters they're not protesters, the rioters, the domestic
insurrectionists.
The insurrectionists. It just goes so further past that, because when you look at how the police officers didn't help, when we want to talk about not defunding police, right? So you don't want to have that conversation with your friend about defunding the police because that's where you switch off. But you seeing police officers in the Capitol letting terrorists walk into your Capitol. That's worthy of a conversation to me. I think
the woman that admitted that she had a conversation with the Secret Service before the insurrection began about security. So he's saying, yes, the reason why Stevie Wonder said he's moving to Ghana.
Post the reasons.
Yeah, we don't know.
Post the reasons. I'm sorry, Mr. Brown.
I'm sorry, Seville. You are always ahead of the curve when it comes to things like this. You're going to have to educate us. You're here, sir. You might as well educate the people.
Right. You want me to send you a link? I'll bring you onto the platform. We can talk together.
Right. Come on up here and talk.
Just tell me, because it's worthy. I know Ghana. I remember. Ghana's probably had done this for a while, but I remember it was big that Ghana was giving African Americans or anyone who was from the Black diaspora, they were giving them citizenship to go back to Ghana. And so I'm not surprised that Stevie Wonder did it. Okay. Here we come, Jennifer. But also, how many Black Lives Matter activists have faced charges from crimes they didn't commit simply because they organized the protest, but a leader of an insurrection that faced none. That's true.
Listen, we have a girlfriend who has been through hell and high water. I can't say any other thing. She was kidnapped by the police and held for how many hours, being terrorized and threatened just because she was organizing protests. Like, that happened. That was real. We saw that happen. That's not a movie. That was real life. So he said that the benefit of being blind, that he can't see color.
Oh, that makes sense. The benefit of being blind is that he doesn't see color, so he doesn't see the issues. So he's just with everyone. Okay.
And that's fine, but I do need you to see color. I don't need teachers and people to say I'm colorblind, I don't see color. Then that means you don't see me, because that means you do. Because what you're saying is, I don't see your struggle. I refuse to acknowledge your trauma. My mental capacity cannot handle what you've been through. And my answer to you is, if you can't even handle thinking about what I've been through, what do you think what you think is going on in my mind that I've been through it? Like, that's my point. And that was one of my points in my post earlier today. if what my question was, can you be friends with someone that has never experienced your has not been through your life experience? And so many people say yes, I can. I can be friends with people that have not had my life experience, and that is true, I can. But I think I need you to acknowledge it. I
Agreed.
need to acknowledge the fact what it means to be a black man if I'm going to be in love with one or be with one or raise one. I need to know what it means to be Hispanic or Latinx in America if I'm going to teach those people. If I'm teaching those students, I need to know. I need to have some kind of empathy as
Mm-hmm.
I'm teaching them so I can understand what they go through or just to interact with anybody in the first place. If I can't have that kind of connection with you, then I'm not authentic. I don't need them in my life.
We got a question.
Hmm.
Wait. Let's get Mr. Brown's statement, and then we have a question. Um, so he said that it's the benefit of being blind is that he doesn't see color, and that he's tired of feeling all the wickedness that his people have and are going through here in
Oh,
America,
okay.
and he doesn't want to raise his kids here in this country anymore. I understand that.
Listen, I mean, you've got that beautiful little girl with those big eyes, Seville. When I think about my girls and especially my son, like at least you got a little girl to raise. Um, I don't like the idea of raising my son. The captain, you've got two sons that you've raised in this country, and anybody else here that's raising an African American male in the United States, that is a scary thing. I'll never forget when Trayvon Martin was murdered. I wrote a poem, and one of the lines in the poem that I wrote was, today I wish they had told me it was a girl.
Mm,
Like I prayed to have a little boy all my life. Everyone will tell you that I had dreams about being a mother and this big and tall, light skinned, huge boy in my dreams. And in my dreams, he would constantly say, Mommy, I'm hungry. I want some milk. I mean, they're just the silliest things that you dream about. And then to birth a young man in America. I wish I had the money to raise him somewhere else. I fear for my son, and I don't want to be Willie Lynch. I don't want to be the mother in Willie Lynch and raise my son to be scary and weak and not a man because I want him to live. But God knows I want him to live.
mm-hmm. You ready for your question?
Sure.
So moving forward, how do y'all see the most productive way to interact in interracial friends during events and when events don't occur? Honest question.
Okay, so I'll go first. What's the most productive way to interact? I think you have to be authentically yourself. I think that it's time out. So this word that we use called code switching, I think it's time to bury that word. I think it's time to bury the concept of code switching. I think it's time out for us being one thing when we're together and we're in family and we're at church and we're with our friends and then being something else when we're in the community. I'm not talking about when you're on your job and when you're at home. I'm talking about when you're around people that are non-black. It's time for us to speak our truth at all times. And if someone is not comfortable, I can hear you now, Nate. If someone's not comfortable with those truths, then it's time to have non-confrontational conversations about why. This is my truth. Speak to the emotions of the truth. Speak to the pain of the truth. I just spoke to my truth. I have a beautiful 15-year-old son who is a genius. And just as intelligent as he is ADHD, meaning hyper. That means he's spontaneous. My son deserves to live till an old age and not be killed because he can have a spontaneous thought or action where somebody else would just, if he was blonde and blue eyed, he would be considered rambunctious. Like he has the right to grow up. And if we know that, no, let me leave that alone. Okay. I just think that you should have genuine conversations. Now I'm going to say it. If we know that the frontal lobe does not develop fully till 25, I don't think any person of any color should be held to certain standards of repercussions, the death penalty, life in prison, things of that nature until they're 20. If they don't, if all reasoning is not there, but you see a disproportionate number of African American males who probably were just hyperactive, and the word is escaping me right now. Just do things. Uh, and we put them in prison for something else that little Johnny does, and he's just hyper. So those are the things I think that it's a balancing act. It is. Go to the comment.
Jennifer says, sometimes it feels like my white friends are tired of hearing me speak my truth, and I'm trying to learn if I need to say less or if I need to be vigilant and stay heard.
Listen, your friends are your friends. Let me tell you something about a friend. A real friend is going to tell you the truth. And a real friend will, like that silly little commercial when the girl says, "You haven't been yourself for a while. Are you okay?" Because there's an awkward silence. I don't know if y'all seen that commercial. A real friend knows when something is hurting you. And if what is hurting you is too much trouble for that person is not your friend. You have to know when people are in your life just because you increase their status. Everybody is looking for a status check. Everybody is looking to increase their stock. And I'm sorry if it's a group of white girls and you're the cute black girl, you increase their stock, and you need to understand that. But if your experience as a black woman is too much for them to handle, then they're not your real friends. My friend Shauna was as Southern and as country and as Southern Baptist as they came, but there was nothing on this earth I could not tell her and talk about and not get genuine conversation about. There was nothing I could say that was too much and was too trivial and was a waste of her time. If anything about you is a waste of somebody's time, they are a waste of your time. Cut them and cut your losses. They're a waste of your time. You need to cut it. And that was my rant.
Okay, I was going to say, wait, can we get one more piece? I just want to read this one sentence. I feel like the difficult one. Can we just got to cut the word difficult. You are the one. You are absolutely the one bringing them the knowledge that they need to have. You are the one that is holding them accountable. You are the one that's doing the work for yourself and for your inner circle and your outer circle. And so there is nothing difficult about it other than the fact that you are the only one in your circle doing it.
Can I get some other sisters in the chat to just affirm Jennifer for a minute? Because isn't that our story? We are the difficult ones. Yes, it's difficult because guess what? You woke up black. You woke up a black woman, and that's difficult. You carry a heavy load. What is it to be? What is there difficult about growing up the privileged one that everybody dotes on versus the one that carries the load? Why is it that you feel like you're being difficult because what is being levied on you? Do you not understand what I said last episode? We need therapy. We are a traumatized people. Why does a baby cry when you hit it on the butt? When they come into this earth, they come into a life of trauma. Then you ought to be screaming, ma'am. Scream to the top of your lungs. Why we talk about Karen and Becky? Becky can cry. They're treating me so bad. Everybody comes running. You cry and they tell you you're being emotional and you need to listen. Be difficult and don't let up. Just take that little curl out your lip. That happens every time I say, don't do that Wendy-ism. When the curl gets to your lip, don't do that. You got to do, I just don't understand. I'm just so. I did it. I try not to. Listen, Jennifer, you're not being difficult. If the people cannot receive where you are, I have a friend. I won't use her name because I don't know if she's on here, but I have a friend, and like all of our conversation, I'm just trying to understand. I read your episode. I heard your episode about the Willie Lynch letter. I never heard of it before. I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to read. Those are real friends.
Mm-hmm.
You live a heavy life. I don't know if you have children. I don't know if you have a husband. If you have a husband, that means you're supporting a black man, or that's a heavy life. If you have children, you're raising black children. That's a heavy life. If somebody cannot be your friend through that, cut your losses and keep it going. Keep it moving.
Come on. Ladies and gentlemen, y'all know what time it is. It's the end of the show. We did a thing.
I was worried about this episode. I guess we got through it.
No, I have faith in us. I think that was great. It was and everyone got just the little pieces that they needed, the gems. I hope y'all feel good. It wasn't that bad. Hopefully you go and have some conversations with some people. It ain't even got to be interracial people. Just go have some conversations and talk about this stuff.
And shout out to all the people that are all the non-black, brown people that are out there doing the work, putting in the time, trying to learn something outside of your stretching yourself. We appreciate you. We're all in this together, and we are one, and it takes a village, and the village is multiracial.
That is it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Mentor Mentee podcast. I am Emil Thomas.
And I am Wendy Torres.
Bye.
See you later. Bye.